on. And here we go. Hi, guys. Welcome into Dinosaur Omelet Land.
Hi.
Please enter. I always say me first. Who are you?
I am Angela.
That's Angela. I'm Christopher. Thanks for coming in, guys. We are the Dinosaur Omelet. And tonight, if you've been here with our continuing education fun, we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about? Beak anatomy. Just kidding, I know. We're talking about the beak, some of its structures and how it functions, and why this knowledge is going to be beneficial to you guys raising your animals at home. Now, formality, which I always like to tell at the beginning, neither of us, believe it or not, are veterinarians. We're not veterinarian. This is not medical or veterinarian advice. None of the stuff we're talking about in here should be taken as medical or animal treatment advice. If you have issues with your critters, take them down to the vet. Make sure they get the proper treatment. Yeah, if you're new here, welcome. This is not a fluff talk video station, would you say?
No.
Yeah, we not that there's anything wrong with fluff talk stations, but I like knowledge, and so we focus on education, and I like to take complex or more difficult subjects and try to present them pretty simply, easy to understand. I think I've been doing that. We talked about some pretty complicated stuff, right? And yeah, so we should enjoy that. Tonight's going to be beak anatomy, and we usually start yapping at around 4 or 5 minutes just to let people get in here and say hi. So if you want to skip forward, go right ahead. Okay, cool. About us, anything you'd like to tell about what we raise here, ma'am?
Well, we are a small hatchery, and we regularly have jumbo quail, the wild or farrow type. The jumbo quails are wonderful for producing a lot of eggs.
They're about this size.
The quail are, yeah.
Quail.
They're about the size of a grapefruit. And also they're great for producing meat. They're quick layers and are very nice and meaty. So we also have silky chickens that we produce for pets. And anyway, we do encourage people to learn new skills, better the quality of their life, and get outside and be in nature and plant stuff, or be in some way involved in growing your food, or learning about it and doing that with the family. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's true. Oh, speaking of homesteading stuff and information, new people, anybody stopping in, down in the description of this video, you're going to find invaluable resources, especially with quail. The first thing down there is a quail Q&A. You see this? It's a quail raising checklist. You see that? I mean, you could go pay people money to teach you this stuff in here. But, you know, my theory right now in 2025, with the availability of information like we're doing here tonight, education and knowledge are no longer sequestered commodities. They're pretty much freely available. The difference between using and getting the information or not is really up to the individual. Are they going to go out of their way to teach themselves? And by teaching themselves, I mean just asking for the information, because most information you want to learn now is pretty freely available if you know where to search, and knowing where to search isn't very hard. So one of the things I like to do is help educate. My business model, we're not trying to get you to buy courses or any of that stuff. That's not, because like I said, I think the commodity of knowledge is that's an old, antiquated business model that's going out of favor, as knowledge is now freely available and much, much easier to access and use. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? You can learn anything now.
Yeah.
So the goal here is to give you guys some of that free information. Check down in the description for free stuff, PDFs, information, how-tos, and fun stuff. I write it for kids. I write it for adults, but it's easy enough for children to read and understand, because these concepts, no matter how, you know, what was it? Einstein was saying, he said like, I don't know, I'll paraphrase because I forget. I should have actually remembered this. If you know what the H you're doing, you'll be able to teach a complex concept to a kid, and they'll be able to understand it. So next week, nuclear physics. Just kidding. All right, so it's about 5 minutes in. I think we're going to roll into this video, right? Are these mine? Yes, these are mine. Inside the beak, these are my notes. Anatomy and sensory functions you may not have known about. And really, I'm not going to be talking too much about that stuff. I'll be talking about the anatomy of the beak, what it's made from, and its care. It sounds like a boring subject, but if taking care of animals, it's pretty important. I mean, you notice them pecking around, like they communicate and they do everything with their little noses, their beaks.
Yeah, and I mean that's a very prominent feature of the bird, and it is very important.
Yeah, it's an indicator of health. Their feeding, their feathers, their feather health can be an indication of beak health. All kinds of stuff going on with the beak, and we'll explain why. So who do we got in here? How many? That's all right. Usually we have people stop in later or the next day. All right, cool. So why the beak deserves a closer look. It's more than just an eating tool. It's an organ that's a combination of bone, keratin, and it's got very sensitive nerve endings in the beak. And I'm going to bring up, I drew a chart. I'll bring that out. It has very sensitive nerve endings in the tip of their beak, which allows them to sense and feel and know what they're interacting with. Kind of like very sensitive fingertips almost. They know what they're touching. Because what do we always talk about here? Like survival and function, like fundamental function of the animals.
Yeah.
So it's the same here. Like the beak is designed to facilitate the health and procreation and survival of the animal. So the beak is also designed it's highly designed, specifically designed for food foraging. Okay? And we'll talk about that. It's really actually very interesting. The reason I like doing these videos for you guys is even though it sounds boring, if you look beyond the surface, it's really very fascinating stuff. You can say something. I'm talking too much all the time.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Well, you know what? I can break out my chart. I'm breaking out my chart because I drew this.
Exciting.
It is exciting, man. I don't time to draw these lovely charts. Wow. She ran over my foot.
People like to have visual aids.
I forgot my pointing stick.
Just go back more. Okay.
It's fine.
Big enough to read.
Plenty big enough to read. There's
for the viewers. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's viewers. Here you go. Plenty big enough to read. So we're gonna go over this.
Are you in the shot?
That doesn't matter.
Well,
nobody wants to see my damn head. They want to see the birds.
You can move it over slightly. It's fine because you're in a gap. Okay,
it's fine. I'll jam my head in. Okay. So we're going to go over a few terms, and we're going to talk about the beak anatomy. So what I drew here, very simply, you guys, is obviously, this is a chicken's skull. A chicken skull. It's not a very good chicken skull. It's a rough drawing, but it gives an approximation so you can generally understand. And I'll tell you what's going on here. In the black line, I drew what would be the bone, the skull material, calcified, okay? And in the pink is the material called the keratin. That's a coating. It is epithelial cells. It's outer cells. This dealie here, the black, is actually the tongue, so that's not a bone. Okay, so let's go over this different stuff. What is the beak? The premaxilla and the lower mandible, that's what you're most familiar with. Premaxilla being the top part of the beak, right? And the lower mandible, which is just like us, it's hinged, goes up and down. So the lower mandible is hinged, and this is stationary protrusion from the cranial, from the skull. So you have this premaxilla and the lower mandible. Now, what is going on here? These are bony structures. These are bony structures that are covered by a protein, kind of like what the feathers are made of, what our fingernails are made of, what their claws are made of. And what's it called?
Keratin.
Keratin. That's what Angela's lovely hair is made out of, is keratin. So there's a coating of protein around the premaxilla lower mandible. And there's also keratin on the tongue.
Really?
Yes, really. There's keratin on the tongue. Why is that? Why is that? So let me see if I'm missing anything as I'm rambling on here. That's what stay organized.
Very well.
The keratin, rhamphotheca. That's also the Greek word, or the scientific term is rhamphotheca, which is a keratin sheath that covers. I should have wrote that in there. Rhamphotheca. It's a keratin sheath that covers the bony structure underneath. You know, one thing I forgot to mention here too, within the beak structure, which is exceptionally important for the bird. Now, bird anatomy relies on this to a very, very high degree, which we wouldn't realize, which is called the nares, or you would say nostrils to make a human equivalent, right? Or as I like to call it, the nose holes. So the nares. So why is that important? So birds naturally breathe. Their obligatory form of breathing is through their snoot, through their nose, through their nares. It brings the air down the esophagus, goes into their, not into their lungs, it goes into a billow system. And were you here when I did the video? Okay, well, I did a lengthy video on actually the respiratory system of the bird. It's not in and out of the lungs. It's a billow system. It's a one-way air system. I don't want to get into that now. Anywho, yeah, they do all their breathing through their nares or little nose, and they don't really switch up back and forth and use the mouth like we do.
Or like a dog.
Or like a dog. They're primarily going to be breathing through the nose. It's the efficient way to deliver oxygen to their body. And we too should be breathing through our nose. There's benefits through nose breathing versus mouth breathing. Production of nitrogen oxide and some other compounds, humidifying our lungs, etc. But yeah, they're getting most of their air through the nares in the beak. It's a large opening. It's not a tiny little hole like our snout holes. These are big openings covered in keratin to protect it, of course. Is that all making sense? Okay, cool. So, let me talk about the tongue. So this is important. What's the tongue? What's going on with the tongue, you guys? You've seen chicken tongues? They look kind of weird. You ever seen a chicken tongue?
They have like a hook on it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, by the way, if you sometimes chicks or chickens will pick up like a string or some sort of stringy object, and it'll sometimes get caught on the tongue, and you don't want to just yank it because the tongue has like a hook-like structure on the back there, and oftentimes the strings get stuck to that hook, so you have to be careful with how you take it off.
Wow, really?
Damage. Yeah.
So do not feed your chicken strings.
Don't do that.
Well, any kind of farm material. So the chickens,
stuff up.
part of their, what do you call it? Their natural instinct is to peck at things that are abnormal, like out of place. And last week we talked about their vision. They have very sensitive vision. It's better than our vision, and their acuity for abnormalities is very high, and they're going to peck at it. So like an injured bird, that's why you want to separate injured birds, because they will perceive and see the injury, and it's going to look unusual to them. They're not the brightest creatures. They're instinctive creatures, and they're going to do this.
Yeah.
And peck and instigate.
And they see color differently.
Yes,
so
they do.
The injury will look different and stand out much more to them.
Well, yes, and I'll talk about that later. Blood,
Yes.
They have a UV receptor where we do not, so they can see it. All right, anywho, what's going on with the tongue besides the little hook she was talking about? So the tongue is covered in a layer of keratin, again, a protective, hard protein layer. Why is this? So unlike us, they have fewer taste buds. We have about, I guess, 2 to 10,000 taste buds, and our friend the chicken has about 200 to 360 or so. However, don't be confused. Our taste is not 40 or 50 times greater than a chicken's. You know, it's not a linear relationship, like one-to-one proportional relationship. The chicken has very precise developed taste buds for bitter and what's called umami, like protein. Why would you think this is? Why do you think this is?
So that they're getting what they need to eat, the protein.
No, yeah, for the protein
That
player.
they're seeking that type of food.
Do you know what the bitter one tells them?
Tells them that it's sour or rotten.
Not good, right? Yeah. So
So that's more sensitive in them than it is in us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these chicken, the birds, avian anatomy with the tongue, much of them anyway. They're going to be more sensitive to bitter, like Angela said, so they don't eat things that might be toxic to them. You know, they don't have restaurants, so nobody's watching out for.
Or the inspectors, the health inspectors, to make sure that the restaurants are operating properly.
Yeah, pause. If you guys want some entertainment, go to your local news site and look up restaurant inspections. They're the best.
He likes reading those.
Rats in the freezer. Anyway, so yeah, they have fewer taste receptors, but their taste receptors are very well tuned for what they're supposed to do. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a sound check here. All right, I am sound checked. Yeah, their taste buds are evolved and specifically designed for what they're supposed to do, which is to detect that bitter to avoid poison or toxins. Is that
And
right?
apparently they can detect sweetness, but it's not anywhere near as
Like
sensitive
people.
as we like the taste of sweet.
Yeah. And again, like Angela said, their taste buds are developed to detect protein or umami. Umami.
You said that.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Mhm.
You expanded upon it.
Yeah.
Now, why it's covered in keratin, we were talking about earlier, that doesn't make sense. Why would you have a hard protective coating on the tongue? Well, what are they doing when the bird's eating, right? They're taking up hard, what do you call it, foraging for hard grains and seeds and other things. They're going to be tough.
In full form too. They
In
might
full
they
form.
might tear something by pulling at it, but mostly kind of like a crocodile, they're just eating it whole.
Yeah. So what's happening? Their premaxilla or their top beak inside, they have a hard palate. So when they're swallowing and pushing food back, they're not chewing their food. So they don't need their tongue to slosh it around and manipulate the food. They just need to get it down their throat into their gizzard. Yeah, well, first it goes to the crop, moistens it up, but the chewing happens down in the gizzard or mechanical grinding. By the way, make sure your chickens have the appropriate grit available to them for grinding. Go see my cold grit video from, like, I guess a week or two ago. So yeah, so what they have a protective coating on the tongue, this keratin protein coating, to take the hard items that they're foraging for and push them on the tough palate, the roof of their mouth, back their throat, and get it down their throat so they can actually, quote unquote, chew it up in the gizzard and grind it up. So they have that hard coating on their tongue. Isn't that cool?
And it is efficient. I mean, you can see them. They'll grab something and it's down. They have it going down really quick.
Nature is exquisitely efficient. Like everything is like, it's really, really amazing the way, and the complexity. The reason, and if you have kids, like biology is like a field you could never, ever teach enough about because it's so complex and it's really fascinating. And even like the easy to understand stuff is mind-blowingly cool because it's so complex, yet it all works together perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we talked about how the beaks are feeding. Greek, Ramphothica. What does that mean in Greek? Rampho, that means beak. Theca, sheath. So it's a beak sheath. And that's really what it is. It's a keratin beak sheath. So little pointer. Most science words are Latin or Greek. A lot of Latin, especially all the animal names are going to be Latin. Binomial nomenclature or two names. Okay, Canis lupus, etc. Or what are these? These are Gallus domesticus, the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we talked about this. Oh, bill tip, tip of the bill, or the bill tip organ and the nerve receptors in the tip of the beak. These animals are designed to forage. They have great vision. They can see what they're looking for. They can detect things. They can see in UV color. And they also have another sensitive food gathering piece of equipment, which is a tip of their premaxilla or this top beak and their beak. They have sensitive nerve endings. These birds can decide and decipher the texture of food, what the food might be, and whether or not they should be eating it. And pertaining to quail, the structures are all basically very much the same. Obviously, they're big, smaller. It's a different bird. Their anatomy is different in size and structure. But the fundamental function is pretty much identical. And the quail have an even more sensitive set of receptors in their little noses and their beak because they're smaller animals, they're ground foragers, and they can detect particles in dust and very teeny tiny small grains. Yeah, so there's like little tiny fingers at the tip of their nose feeling around that are very, very sensitive. And again, exquisitely designed to help them function in the environment that they evolved in. You know, we keep our animals in artificial settings. No matter how nice the setting is, it's artificial. There's pluses and minuses. They're not going to get eaten by foxes, but it's a different setting than their natural evolutionary ancestral background.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. So that was the parts of the beak. I think that was pretty cool. Did you find that interesting at all?
Yeah.
I think it's really amazing.
Yeah. I didn't realize how sensitive the tip front part of their beak is.
Yeah, I'm going to go into the growth of the keratin, like growth, because the beak keeps growing. And I'm going to talk about that a bit. Let me see if that's in this section. This section of the beak. Now I seem to. Not really. So I'll just go off the top of my head because this isn't really very complex stuff and it's easy to understand, but it's stuff you guys should know. The beak always grows. There's a lot of animals that have mechanical, functional parts of their bodies that continually grow, and they need to grind down. In the case of the birds, it's that keratin out of shit. Can you name some other animals with parts that just keep growing and growing?
Humans?
That grind down. We use them mechanically and grind down.
Well,
Well, that's true. We got fingernails and
things with hooves, like horses and cows. What else?
beavers, rodents.
Teeth. That's right.
Bunny rabbits, they're not rodents. Yeah, they have teeth continually growing, so they have to grind them down. What's the other one? Anything else? I'm sure there's others.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But off the top of my head. Anyway, the point is there are biological components of the animals that are continually growing, and in their environment, it's not an issue because they grind down naturally.
Oh, and by the way, when I said humans, I meant like, you know how when people get old, their ears and noses seem to get big. But our hair keeps growing.
Hair, I'm not grinding their nose down.
No. Yes, so it's not quite the same. The hair and the fingernails.
But their noses get big and their ears grow.
That's what I pictured.
They should really grind them down. Some people pay to have them ground down. They get their noses reduced.
That's true. They do. Yeah.
So, but this keratin outer shell is always growing. It's always getting replaced. It's living tissue. There's blood in there, back in here. The keratin, however, is not going to have blood vascularity to it and blood. It's like fingernail material. It's until you get to the bony structure where the blood and nerve endings are located.
Yeah.
But what happens? Yeah, this keeps growing, but naturally through the foraging behavior, the keratin's worn down. If you keep a chicken as a house chicken, and it's in a soft little environment, what do you think happens?
The beak is going to keep growing, and usually it's this top part, but the bottom as well can grow. But yeah, it'll grow. The hook will just keep going down, and that can make it a little difficult for them to eat. So yeah, you can Dremel it or file it, but to allow them to do it naturally, if you have a house chicken or something.
Yeah, some people do have house chickens.
Yeah, or it's an environment where they don't have, or maybe some of the birds are doing well, but maybe one or two aren't. So they have things like seed blocks that are, like firm, hard, and that they could peck at, and it kind of acts like a file. And then there's like toys and different things that they can peck at, and it'll act like a file. Yeah,
one thing too to keep in mind, not that this is common, crossbeak is you're going to see more often than just overgrowth with a chicken. Anyway, with the overgrowth in the beak, there's something else chicken does with their beak that's very important for the health, and that's preening. They have a gland that secretes oil down there at their tailbone. It's called the uropygial gland. It secretes this oil that they use mechanically with their beak to get, and they spread it on their feathers. Now, if the beak is all screwed up, they're not going to be able to do that function very well. Their feathers will deteriorate, and that preening keeps the feathers waterproof. It keeps them healthy and fluffy, and it works as a barrier against parasites. So if they have a weird-looking beak that's screwed up because it's overgrown, they're going to have a more difficult time doing that, and they may suffer as a result. And especially with a case of crossbeak, that may be an issue. Okay, and we'll talk about crossbeak. I got a good crossbeak supplemental to do before 37 minutes because this thing always flips around at the time. Okay. Anybody in here? Oh, it's Kelly. Kelly, you know what? I didn't even see you if you're still there. Like, yeah, I hardly ever, these messages aren't popping up.
Excuse my yawning. I find this very interesting. It's just been a long day.
Yeah,
sorry, it's not a reflection on you at all. Very well.
All right, beaks in communication and social behavior. This isn't really so much about the anatomy, but function of beak. Pecking order. Angela loves talking about pecking order. What are they doing with pecking order? They're pecking?
Yeah, the easiest way that brings pretty immediate results is to peck. So the more dominant one in the group will do a quick peck on the body of the other one they want to try to correct, And yeah, and sometimes there's some pecking back and forth, but that's a natural hierarchy behavior for them to maintain balance within their flock, in their group. You can't have a bunch of chaos if you're functioning in a group. So
Yes, indeed. And as we mentioned earlier, another behavior you guys may interpret as bad behavior, but it's instinctive behavior, is the chicken will peck at injured chickens. It's bad enough the chicken's injured, but when the others see it, it's an abnormality. They perceive the animal as perhaps genetically weak or it's going to fail. And for some reason, these critters have it hardwired into their biology to many times eliminate the liability in the pack, the one that's weak and may not prosper. So they'll start pecking at injuries, exacerbating like cuts or open wounds. So if you have a chicken with a cut or wound, you definitely want to remove it, treat the wound, and hopefully you can isolate it till it's healed a bit before you put them back, because you don't want the wound to be open in front of a bunch of birds, because you may notice some pecking going on and making it worse.
And sometimes as people like to humanize animals and put onto them our emotions and the way that we function, but we're all different creatures. So their emotions, they may have emotions, but most often it's nothing personal. They're not thinking like that at all. So try just to understand its instinct rather than like hatred or something. Anyway.
Right. Very good. Thank you, honey. Okay. Anything else important about beaks and communication, social behavior? No. So I'll talk about problems with beak, health problems you may see. We talked about one of them, which is overgrowth.
Yeah.
It's just the animals are not having the ability to grind their beak down, and that's just due to insufficient like foraging behavior, scratching behavior. And you're probably never going to see that unless you're raising an animal strictly in an indoor environment or in a cage. I mean, some people keep chickens in a cage, like a pet. I know. Sounds weird, but that happens. And you can do that and keep a house chicken, but keep aware of the beak overgrowth. You can treat it with subtle, incremental, gradual grinding with an emery board or a Dremel tool if the keratin is growing too long.
And just provide them with something to peck, something that would be alluring, that would be rough. Like I said, they have compressed seed blocks and different things, even for like parrots, and because parrots have the same thing.
Well, I was going to say the attritional birds, which are the birds born with no feathers, the nesting birds, we usually keep them as pets. They're the parrots, like Angela was saying. They're the ones more prone to beak overgrowth. People who have pet birds in a cage. What are they? Not sparrows. What do they keep? Lovebirds? Any of those birds.
Just little birds.
Any bird
Parrots,
in a cage, if they're not provided that, is that cuttlefish bone? I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, those birds have a much higher tendency to have beak overgrowth. Somebody new to the bird, they see it at the pet shop. Oh, that's so cute. They want it as a pet, and they don't really have a full understanding of the critter's needs and how they function. Coolio. All right. So infections, well, I don't want to get into too much about that because any injury can lead to an infection. Any open wound can invite exterior organisms into the wound to fester and create problems. So again, always remove your critter, treat the wound, and if need be, bring them to the chicken doctor, which would be the best course of action. So nutrition for the beak. What is the beak? Again, keratin, nerve endings, keratins, protein synthesis. So we're going to need the appropriate nutrients for protein synthesis, vitamin A, biotin, B complex vitamins, and of course protein, methionine, lysine, an appropriate diet. You're going to see a lot of other health issues with improper nutrition. So not just a beak issue is, that's definitely, if you have nutritional deficiencies in the diet for your animals, they're going to have a whole bunch of different symptoms, not just poor beak. And that beak thing is going to be coming over a course of time, not just the next day or few days. That's going to be a long-term issue. So nutritional deficiencies are going to show up in a lot of different medical issues for your little chicken. Not good. So use a good chicken feed. In fact, check out our My Little Dinosaur on the Facebook. we make a feed, and not just to sell the feed, but to let you guys know, there's a lot of very interesting science behind feed that you should be aware of. Like I said earlier, we're raising these things in artificial environments, so they're not accessing their natural diet. We're supplementing their diet. And when we're supplementing their diet, we want to give them the equivalency nutritionally of what they would have optimally out in the jungle with their cousin, the wild jungle fowl, right? That's what they're designed and evolved to eat. So we want to mimic that as closely as possible to keep them in homeostasis, which is optimal function. They're going to be happy little chickens.
Yeah. So our feed that we produce and sell is also what we feed our chickens and ducks.
Yeah, and they're doing perfectly good.
Yeah,
they're very
it's
healthy
a
critters.
very enriched food.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we made it food is some people were asking, "Oh, do you sell your feed?" Because we put a lot of time and effort into making our feed, and then we really refined it. And there's a whole bunch of feeds on the market. You got to understand, like, I'm really transparent about stuff because I'm not an idiot, and I don't like treating people like idiots. So I'll educate them on what they need to know. And then, I mean, you can mix your own feed. So why would we sell feed if people can mix it? Because people are lazy. They don't want to, I mean, they're just lazy. They don't have time, and nobody wants to take time to mix 50 different feeds.
We also worked closely with poultry specialists for trial to make sure that our ingredients and the amount of the ingredients were proper for the bird's needs, daily needs. So it wasn't that we, just threw some things together, and some people do that, but you have to be careful because just like humans, any other creature, there are needs, vitamins and minerals and different things, nutrients that we need daily.
Yeah, and there's stuff that our intuition is wrong about, because what we do as humans is we apply our human attributes, needs, desires, etc., onto animals, which might seem intuitively correct, but then it's not correct at all. So it's a lot different. So like I was talking last week with lighting, for example, you might want to use an LED light setup for artificial lighting in a chicken coop, and intuitively it seems like a normal, natural idea, except the lights flash at a different, or the birds have a much more sensitive flicker rate perception. They can perceive flicker rates of 120 beats per second, whereas our eyes are about 60. So if we see 60 flashes, we're not going to notice a flash. It's just melded into one continual light. So our intuition sometimes doesn't really apply. And so when we do that with anything, with animals, it may not be correct and could be quite damaging.
Kind of like having a strobe light on constantly for them.
In the thing, yeah.
If it's not the proper lights.
Yeah. Okay, so earlier we talked about crossbeak. Bum, bum, bum. I'm going to talk about that briefly because that is something that people often ask about or they're worried about it. What is crossbeak? It is when your bird, in this case we'll talk about chicken, happens in quail too, can happen in any bird, where the premaxilla is going to not align properly with the lower mandible. So this structure, this bony structure, is growing abnormally and it won't line up with the lower mandible. Instead of, try to do a beak. That, you're going to have, see that?
Yeah, sometimes people call it scissor beak.
Scissor beak, yeah, because it's scissor. So why is this happening? The causal factor, the majority of the time, is genetic. Okay, so somewhere in the gene pool, they have an allele for crossbeak, meets up with another one, and you have a crossbeak. Right? There can be a mechanical cause, but that's more rare, and that would be like where the bird is in the wrong position in an egg, the humidity and during incubation is compromised, and then
not proper rotation of the eggs, maybe.
And they may have some developmental issues in the egg, but that's not really probably going to be an issue because you're going to see, again, if you're not incubating properly, you're going to have issues besides a crossbeak, and you're going to see it with different birds as well. Yeah. In the incubation, in the overall hatch, you're going to see problems manifesting in a bunch of different birds with a poor incubation process. So if you're seeing crossbeak, I'm not jumping to, oh, we didn't incubate properly. It's a genetic thing. It's a genetic.
And yeah, it's something that would develop as they grow.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
So you'll notice it in the first like 2 to 3 weeks, and it does get more severe as they age.
Mm-hmm. And there are different degrees on how much it can cross. You know, it could just be slightly off,
Yeah.
or it could be severely off.
Yes.
Which obviously could potentially cause difficulty for them to eat. May make them eat much slower. Some of them they eat fine, like they get by eating fine. But some may require their food to be altered slightly. So they might need intervention by you to eat. So they may need extra care.
Yeah, so the question,
It flipped.
oh, it flipped. Man, at 35, 45. Yeah, this thing always flips. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're just about done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So can I keep a chicken with crossbeak as a pet? Yes. However, it's going to require extra work, like Angela said. Since the beak is crossed, sorry, this is sideways. This StreamYard does this to me every time. I have no idea why. Since the beak is crossed, it's not going to be eating properly, most likely, not getting the amount of calories or nutrients it needs, especially if it's with other birds. They're going to outcompete it for food. Okay. They're not going to be able to preen properly because the beak is crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Preening is a precision activity with the feathers. So if their beak's like not working properly and it's crossed like that, they're not going to have the precision to apply the preen, the euprygio oil to their feathers, nor fluff them out properly and align them properly. So you're going to notice bad feathering, which will invite, what do you call it, parasites, and pests.
But some people, there are lots of people actually who they have a big heart for for disabled animals and such, and they can live very happy lives.
They can
with
indeed.
Intervention. And again, some are not severe at all and can do fine on their own.
That's true.
But that's just something to consider. They are fine as pets, but you certainly would not want to breed them and produce offspring.
Yeah, you
with them.
cull them from the breeding program.
Mm-hmm.
Cull doesn't mean ice them out. It means just remove them.
Yeah, remove them, however that looks.
Yeah, and what else about the crossbeak? Oh, one other thing. It's covered in what? What is it covered in? It's covered in keratin, so that's going to continue to grow. But they won't. They'll be unable what?
To file them naturally.
Yeah, they won't be able to file them down like a regular chicken beak.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably also going to have to be tended to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, crossbeak is vastly likely genetic. But, here in science land, we don't say 100% because it could be malformation during incubation. But, we do like the most likely cause is the correct one. Hi there, person watching. Sorry, we're sideways. It flipped on us midway through. And we're finishing up. But, yeah, the crossbeak is genetic. It's possible it's caused mechanically during development, but it's most likely always going to be genetic. You don't want that in your breeding program, so you're going to remove it from the breeding program. The chicken can maintain a quality of life, but like we just mentioned, it's going to require some upkeep, and you need to tend to those needs if you wish to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I hope that was good. I'm never using the StreamYard again. I'm switching back to old YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Understanding chicken beak anatomy. I hope it was a nice one. This upper beak part is called the premaxilla. The little nostril hole that we use for sniffing, the bird does, the nares. That's their main pathway for air intake. They don't breathe through their mouth unless they're under stress, duress, or they're really hot and they're doing evaporative cooling. Mm-hmm. They'll start breathing through their mouth. Their natural default breathing is just through nose. The bony structure, the premaxilla, and the lower mandible are the bony structures covered, what the red is, I tried to draw, by keratin, like our fingernails, protein. And their tongue also contains a keratin layer because the tongue is designed to, well, in this case, the reason that keratin is there, it's pushing that food back against its palate to get those hard things down back through the throat. So they don't want a soft tongue. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And that big circle is the gigantic eye socket, which they have a very large eye relationship to the brain. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. And this is sideways yet again.
There's just the automatic comments.
Oh, it was Katie again. Hi, Katie. Sorry, we're sideways again, and then I didn't see your comment pop up till just now. We got a feed store chick whose beak grew into a hooked beak. both top and bottom hook the same so she can eat and drink. Just lays a bantam-sized egg. Definitely not breeding options.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's Katie. I was going to text you in a bit. Everybody's going to text each other. Nobody texts me. Gosh darn it. Just kidding. I wouldn't text me.
I pushed this back.
Yeah, hi, Katie. Yeah, you can find cross beaks in hatchery stock. It's not because the hatchery stock's bad. It's just they're hatching many, many birds, and it's just going to come up once in a while.
Yeah, and it's like a recessive type gene, and it's something that a breeding bird may never actually exhibit through its offspring, but on occasion, if they're paired with the right mate that also has this recessive gene, then there's a potential for it to pop out. So it's not necessarily that the breeding parents are bad options to have, but yeah, it's just if you're a intricate breeder, detailed breeder, then you keep track of your birds and what they're doing. But yeah, it can have a very happy life if you guys choose to keep it.
I didn't text you, but I did mention your story today. Oh, I saw Kelly. I said, yeah, I saw that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Katie, this is actually an interesting topic. I'm glad you enjoy this stuff. I'd rather make like quality information. I think this is quality information because it's really interesting information. And once you learn it, it kind of stays in your brain and you can use it. You're like, oh, I understand this now. Rather than just, I don't know. I don't like fluff stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm a substantive, let me try to say that now, person. I'm a person of substance. Like I like, quality.
I'm going to have to sit down and get a drink.
Oh,
I can feel the cough coming on my throat, getting dry. I'll be right back.
Well, I'll probably be gone by the time to give it. But things of use and value and not time wasting. And I was saying earlier, if you weren't here earlier, education is no longer scarce. Knowledge is no longer scarce. Maybe I should twist sideways to look up, right? Knowledge is no longer scarce. It's freely available on the internet. And it's abundant and it's much easier to access. And it's much easier to get quality information now, if you know how to anyway. And people are starting to learn that. So I always encourage constant, go learn and endeavor in the things you like. Okay, cool.
He always insists on being on that side.
Oh, yeah,
he won't just move over so I can stand on that side.
That's okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to leave this sideways thing because it's always sideways.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, you guys. I hope that was interesting. Feel free to subscribe and like the video. Again, like Christopher mentioned earlier, we do these videos, educational videos weekly.
And I'm not doing sideways
He loves
anymore.
doing the interesting topics and teaching you guys. So, and yeah, if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, feel free to drop them in the comments section and we will get back to you. But yeah.
Cool.
Hope you guys have a good rest of the day.
I was looking at my notes. All right, guys. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.